Denver is a sanctuary city is tied to whether I'm a traitor to America. We'll explain. Self-driving cars are coming, hopefully not to kill us all. Why do we fear machines and tolerate texting drivers? Preparing for this week's weather requires a backup plan, like this guy's. And our search for the proper pronunciation of a town in Colorado that totally stumped me. Next. Quick heads up, I-70 is a slip show tonight. It's back open after being closed eastbound at Silverthorne and closed westbound at the tunnel this afternoon. There are cars sliding off the interstate, so CDOT put the traction law in effect between Vail and Copper Mountain. Same rules in place for Loveland Pass. Our snow forecast is calling for a trace to 3 inches or so in the metro area, 5 to 10 inches south of county line and in the southern foothills. We will update you as needed on the forecast and the road conditions, but we won't be hyping the living bejesus out of them every 2 minutes. We are getting some feedback about our reporting on why Denver is not likely targeted by the Trump administration's crackdown on sanctuary cities. And it is some really super thoughtful feedback tonight. Ike writes, "You have the nuts to say this city is not a sanctuary city. You're nutless." Shane writes, "You are nothing but a dirty little globalist traitor." It's funny that you mentioned that I'm a dirty little globalist traitor, because that term, just like the term sanctuary city, has no legal definition. So I'm a dirty little globalist traitor, and Denver is a sanctuary city, if you say so. But what we've been looking at here is whether Denver will fall under the Trump administration's defunding of sanctuary cities, and the Attorney General made clear it hinges on one federal law.
The Department of Justice will also take all lawful steps to claw back any funds awarded to a jurisdiction that willfully violates 1373.
1373.
8 U.S.C. Section 1373.
Attorney General Jeff Sessions zeroed in on that federal law as the benchmark for whether a city is now in danger of losing Justice Department grant money.
1373. You should not be receiving certain federal funds if you're not in compliance with 1373.
1373 says state and local authorities can't prohibit employees from communicating with immigration officials. It does not require compliance with those voluntary immigration detainer requests where Denver has gotten tangled up with the feds. In Denver, the police manual tells officers that they shouldn't stop someone based solely on a suspicion that they're in this country illegally. But unlike other cities targeted by the feds, in Denver, there's no prohibition on communication with immigration agents, such as in New York City. The Denver Sheriff's Office and ICE have argued over whether Denver provides enough notice before releasing someone who's wanted for deportation. But that, again, is different from places like New Orleans, that a federal report found could be in violation of 1373 because they refused to provide any information on inmates. The Trump administration may eventually widen its net for sanctuary cities. But if 1373 is the standard for defunding, then Denver looks safe. One other thing that's worth noting here, politicians in progressive cities have been looking to reap the benefits of declaring their cities to be diverse and opening and welcoming. Denver Mayor Michael Hancock said if sanctuary city reflects Denver's values, we'll then call Denver a sanctuary city. And all the way back in 1998, Mayor Wellington Webb issued a largely symbolic order that welcomed immigrants. Recently, Boulder passed a formal declaration that it is a sanctuary city. But even cities that declare themselves to be sanctuaries are not automatically targeted by the Trump administration's threat. The administration announcement this week is focused on actions, not words. And if you'll permit a dirty little globalist traitor a final note here, I would encourage you all to read for yourself the sources for this reporting. The Attorney General's remarks, U.S. Code 1373, the federal report, Denver's police manual, Mayor Hancock's comments, and Mayor Webb's 1998 order. You can find links to all of them in this story on the next section on 9news.com. Colorado could soon make self-driving cars street legal, and it's a question of politics, which is why Brandon Ritteman is along to explain the pros and cons.
This isn't some theoretical thing. The driverless car is already every bit as real as the horseless carriage, just not quite so common yet. Virtually every big company in cars or tech is working on it. Ford, Google, GM, Tesla, Lyft, Uber, which just had a driverless car end up on its side in Tempe, Arizona. Now that seems like a bad headline for self-driving cars until you learn the cops said the human driving the other car was at fault. Here in Colorado, our self-driving car policy is not a thing yet.
Right now, there is no current law, so it's not clear that you can do it, and it's not clear that you can't do it. And so we're just saying very clearly, you can do this here in Colorado, provided you can follow all the rules of the road, just like any human driver.
Senator Owen Hill is one of the bipartisan sponsors of Senate Bill 213. It's a simple bill, just 5 pages long. It says you can put a self-driving car on Colorado roads if it can obey all the traffic laws. If it can't, you need special permission from CDOT and State Patrol. And it bans local governments from creating their own laws on self-driving cars, so the rules will be the same statewide. It's too simple by far, if you ask the trucking industry. The Colorado Motor Carriers Association points out there's no minimum testing required before putting a self-driving car on the road, no state agency in charge of approving those cars, and no extra safety requirements for bigger self-driving vehicles like trucks and buses. And all that's true. But supporters of the bill think there's a bigger beef, one you can see in this test of a self-driving beer delivery truck in Colorado. There's no driver there. This technology threatens to make drivers obsolete. Now, we may end up there no matter what, but this law could make that happen sooner. For Next, I'm Brandon Rittiman.
Brandon's article on 9news.com explains how you can be heard on this bill as it moves through the Senate. CDOT is officially on record in support of it, and CDOT's partnering with self-driving vehicle companies while saying that the agency is on the front line of protecting public safety. So today I asked CDOT's executive director, Shaylin Batt, when was the last time that they pushed back on one of these companies' requests? And he pointed to that self-driving beer truck run that happened on I-25 last October.
One of the first questions the chief of the State Patrol asked in the meeting was, how do I pull over a self-driving vehicle? And I was like, that's a good question. Somebody should know that answer, right? And so there was an iterative process back and forth, and they had to prove to us, I won't say beyond a shadow of a doubt, but beyond a reasonable doubt that this thing would work.
There's also the issue of psychology around self-driving cars, and you talk about all the people who are killed by people's actions on the roads, and we have such an acceptance as a society of people being killed by people, and we're terrified of people being killed by machines.
Yes, there is that whole Terminator I guess psychology that's burned in everybody's mind. Look, when the Tesla had the self-driving accident or crash, excuse me, I don't use the term accident, crash in Florida, everybody was like, oh my goodness, this person died, and ignored the 100 other deaths on the road that day. Yesterday or the other day, the Uber vehicle had a crash. We, for some reason, hold machines to a higher standard, and I get that. That's part of the psychology. Do an experiment if you're driving tonight. Look at all the people, look at the cars that don't start when the light turns green. Look at the people who are driving 70, 80 miles an hour, looking down at a phone and doing things. We talk about distracted driving. Driving is a distraction from what people want to be doing these days on their phones.
Knowing your interest and your expertise in transportation, we talk a lot about the A-line train around here. What do you see as a transportation professional when you look at the struggles of that train line 1 year in, still having to go to the Federal Railroad Administration hat in hand every few months to ask for an extension to work out the bugs?
Well, I have a vested interest in it working well because a lot of people don't distinguish between RTD and CDOT, right? So I get calls, why isn't your train working?
It's a plane, train, or an automobile, so it falls under
my fault, right? And karma would prevent me from criticizing another agency. I think there's two things. I think people have an expectation that the train should work. I would think what people are less aware of is that it's a public-private partnership, and the costs of getting this thing right are on the private sector. This is a public-private partnership, and I think that the public sector is getting good value for the money in terms of if the private sector didn't get it right, then the private sector's got to make it right.
My full conversation with Shaylin Batt from CDOT is on the next YouTube page. There we talk about transportation funding, whether activists can still stop the I-70 project through Denver, and whether the state-subsidized Mustang service will ever be able to stand on its own. So we know more about what Kent Salazar is doing now that he's not running for governor. He's getting paid by CU to advise the regents on the domestic violence investigation involving the football program. It's a contract worth up to $75,000 to offer guidance on the Joe Tumpkin investigation. Next week, CDOT's expecting a final report on whether anyone in the athletic department violated their policies after they heard of domestic violence allegations against Coach Tumpkin. Well, the Broncos continue to sort out which season ticket holders get the boot next season. We told you that the Broncos want to revoke tickets from fans who sold off all their games last year. And ticket holders said that illness and other family issues kept them from those games. Well, here's an email that some of them got, and one of them passed to us. The Denver Broncos have received your inquiry regarding your season ticket account not being renewed. Your inquiry is being reviewed by the Broncos ticket office, which will inform you when the review has been finalized. Thank you for your patience. I mean, it beats learning that your tickets are toast, but we are hoping for a fast resolution, and the wait continues. Dozens of you pointed out that I did the famous King Soopers penny horse wrong last night. We were laughing about this out of order sign, the horse is sick, and I said that some parent saved a quarter. The horse is a penny. The horse has always been a penny. 2 generations ago, the horse was a penny, and the horse is still a penny today. My apologies for the error. I stand corrected. I need to get off my high horse and get onto a tiny horse and put in a penny and ride. Next rolls on shortly. We'll get into your head by way of your desk and what it says about you.
You don't want to be dirty. It's okay to be messy. You don't want to be dirty.
A twist on the old phrase, not in my backyard, would reshape Denver. And the next snowstorm is just like the last one. It's the city versus the suburbs.
Scattered showers in the 9 News backyard and in downtown Denver, and the rain will turn heavy at times overnight. I'm meteorologist Kathy Sabin. Outside, wet roadways, and we're also looking at reduced visibility around the area. First, a 3-storm system tracking toward Colorado. Our latest system will move rapidly east, producing a severe weather threat that will span 6 states. Hail and tornadoes already reported across Oklahoma, Texas tonight. And our latest weather maker already producing heavy snow in the high country. For Denver, kind of a rain-snow mix. All the advisories south of the city. We'll see a rain-snow mix for the morning drive with several inches of accumulation between Castle Rock, Colorado Springs, down toward Walsenburg and Trinidad. Here in this city, no more than 3 inches of snow on the grass above 7,000 feet. As the system moves away, skies will clear midday tomorrow. We're on our way to a warmer day Thursday, and another storm that we're tracking, the other one for the weekend, looks to have some cold air support. It looks to be a little bit stronger. Rain to snow overnight tonight with a low around freezing. You'll have a wet drive tomorrow morning, but shouldn't be too impactful for you. Midday clearing and temperatures in the lower 50s. Back to sunshine and 60s on Thursday. Rain showers Friday mixing with snow again on Saturday. Accumulating snow likely for the first half of your weekend. Things improving again by Sunday afternoon.
Kathy, thank you. The most Colorado thing we saw today is a man with a plan. Rick Bear saw him up near Steamboat, pedaling along on his bike in his ski boots with a snowboard strapped to his back. Rick writes, this guy is definitely allergic to cities. We'd say there's nothing wrong with that. The border on the bike is the most Colorado thing we saw today. Not in my backyard. That NIMBY attitude has been the staple of many local TV news stories for decades. Change anything, just suggest changing anything, and you can guarantee that people will line up in front of TV cameras to complain. Sometimes they have a point. Sometimes they don't. And that's the point of the Yes in My Backyard effort. And we see that side through the lens of our photojournalist, Brian Wendland.
So the YIMBY organization stands for Yes in My Backyard, and ultimately what we kind of represent are kind of really 2 priorities. One is that we recognize the need for housing within the city of Denver so that we don't have to sprawl. We also want to make sure that we're planning for people, and that means that we are really prioritizing pedestrian and bicycle and transit kinds of infrastructure that make it possible for people to move around this town. Well, I think I've always been a person who primarily gets around by bike, and so for me, when you interact with the city in that way, you get to kind of see things from a different point of view than you do when you're moving around by car. I think what it comes down to for me is equity. I think both of the things that I mentioned, housing and people-oriented planning, have to do with making sure that anybody who wants to can live where they want to. In the near term, it's kind of about just building community around our principles. Long term, we want to see a city that works for everybody.
There's a big difference between dirty and messy. Dirty hair isn't cool, and don't try talking messy to someone. Dr. Mack says the differences don't end there. And the first edition of What Do You Say that had me totally stumped. Next.
I have a confession to make. My coworkers all will tell you I am a messy person.
And I've seen your desk, and it's true.
It is not a pretty sight. What we've been discussing in the office is whether you can be messy and aspire to be clean, or are messy people just generally messy? Because I really want to be cleaner, but I can't do it.
Yeah, here's the deal. So this is like a personality thing, and and the people who are messy are able to somehow relax in that messiness. People who are neat, it drives them crazy if they're in a mess. And yes, most people who are messy want to be neater than they actually are, and it's just I'm messy too. You know this. It takes a lot of effort. Like you see the bag there, you could pick it up, or you could just leave it there and pile a whole bunch of stuff on top of it.
I'll get home, take the jacket off, and hang it up on the back of a chair and think, I should really put that on a hanger and put it in the closet.
Yeah.
And that's all that happens.
Yeah.
I think about it, and then I don't do it.
No, and a neat freak, that it would drive them crazy. They wouldn't be able to relax until that jacket was in its proper place.
We know a few people like that around here.
We do. There are a few producers in
particular,
news land.
maybe 4 o'clock producers who just need everything to be clean.
Yes, and what we've learned from some of those 4 o'clock producers is that they're very happy being neat, but they wish that maybe they were a little less uptight about it. So if you're messy, you want to be neat. If you're neat, you maybe wish that you could relax a little more.
Any suggestions of how I can make myself neat?
No, it's impossible. That I have not figured it out. I've been messy my entire life. I'll straighten up. The house will look great, and then like 10 minutes later, it's a mess, and I'm like, well, I don't care anymore.
I guess I better run back to my office and see what I need to go pick up on my desk.
Yeah. You don't want to be dirty. It's okay to be messy. You don't want to be dirty.
All right. Fair enough. Dr. Max Wachtel, thank you.
I don't like the way Dr. Max says dirty. It's like so full of judgment. So Steve Staker's not lying about living on the messy side or the dirty side. You decide. Our producer Aaron snapped this photo of his desk today while he was gone. Part of me feels bad desk shaming Steve while he's on vacation, but part of me finds it delicious. Just like the leftover coffee and mug sitting all over his desk. What do you say when you want to refer to the town in southwestern Colorado, the one that's home to the headquarters of the Mountain Ute Indian Reservation? David Black asked next to find out. And I was completely baffled on this one. So we called the Mountain Ute Indian Reservation and asked the tribe's culture and language director, what do you say?
Toyak, it's called Toyak. It's okay, they said. It's okay where we're living at, and they call it Toyak.
T-O-W-A-O-C, Toyak. The tribe's culture and language director says it means okay in the native Ute language. We're happy to solve your debates about names of places in our state anytime. Tweet them our way with the hashtag HeyNext or email next@9news.com. We're back with your feedback and a unique look at the A-line from the inside of a shutdown. A late check today. Is the A-line working? The train to the plane? And we can happily tell you yes. And we waited until the last minute because you know what? We said yes yesterday and then the A-line messed the bed. Allison Hoskins was aboard when the train ran into problems. It was quite the test. Entertainer young one Oscar. Tasty finger worked in this case. Apparently so did distracting Oscar with shoelaces. Anything to keep the baby happy until the train gets moving again. We understand the family did make it home okay once that train got back on track, so to speak. A lot of you want to talk about self-driving cars, but I'm with Aaron P. tonight, who writes, I'd bet $50 a self-driving car wouldn't hit the target rock. I'd bet you're right, Aaron. And Jordan Denning tweets, sometimes I think Kyle Clark likes his jokes more than the viewers. I think you're absolutely right about that, and Cody agrees over there as well. We're going to talk about this in the show debrief. I'll see you next time.